everybody, my twin word Fresno here. I just wanted to do a quick intro into what you're listening to. So, for a while now, I've been wanting to do a paranormal podcast, but I really couldn't come up with an idea. I wanted to do something different. Then a thought came to me. Why not have people either call in or email me their stories, and I share them here on a podcast? I believe a lot of people have stories and they need to be told. And this is the best place to do that. So with that said, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Phantom Files, the podcast that dives into the uncharted realms of the paranormal in the Central California area. I'm your host, Michael Banty, and together we'll unravel the mysteries that haunt the world we live in. On this show, we invite individuals to call in or email their spine-tingling experiences with the supernatural. From ghostly apparitions to close encounters with UFOs and everything in between, we explore the bizarre and unexplained phenomena that defy our understanding. So grab a seat, dim the lights, and prepare to explore the enigmatic wonders of the unknown. The Phantom Files begins now. This first story is one that actually happened to me while I was still living at home. I was going to school, and all my classes were in the afternoon, which meant I would go to bed late and then wake up late. So first, before I get to the actual story, I need to do a layout of the house that I was living at. I was living with my mom at the time, and we had just a typical 3-bedroom house. My mom and stepdad had their room, I had my room, my sister had her room. And the way the house was laid out was you had the living room on the right-hand side, kitchen, dining room on the left, then the garage, and then a hallway that went all the way to the back. And on the right side was my sister's bedroom, and then my bedroom, and then on the left side was the hall bath, and then my mom's bedroom and bathroom. And we had just pulled up the carpet and found hardwood floor underneath. And I'm telling this because it's actually important to what happened later on. So the entire house, except for, I want to say that kitchen, was all hardwood floor now. Anyways, I was watching TV one night, after midnight, decided to go to bed. Walking down the hallway, and as I get to where my sister's bedroom door is at, I see this figure in a white dress go from her bedroom from right to left into the hall bathroom, and I actually heard the rustling and the dragging of the dress on the floor. That's why I mentioned the hardwood floor, because I actually heard the dress move on the floor, the rustling sound. I'm thinking, okay, my sister's sleepwalking again. She'd been doing that for a while. She was about 6 or 7 at the time, and so I turned on the light in the bathroom to check on her. Well, there was nobody in the bathroom. Thinking, okay, that's weird. Maybe it was light left to right. I don't know. Like, it was late, so I turned on the light in her bedroom. She's fast asleep, wearing nothing but sweats and a t-shirt, not a white dress. And I know I saw a figure in a white dress. So a little spooked, I went to bed. Next day, I'm telling my mom the story, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's the previous owner's wife. She died here. Apparently, shadow figures have been seen, stuff like that." What's unfortunate about this story is I soon moved out, and my mom sold the house, I'm going to say maybe 6 months or so later, and I never really had a chance to investigate, because this was before I started to really investigate, before I knew about EMF meters and EVP recordings. I had been into the ghost stuff and the UFO stuff since I was a kid, but I wasn't prepared to investigate. I didn't know that was a thing. I just knew there were haunted places, and I'd been to some before as a kid, kind of exploring them, but nothing more as a thrill thing. This was my first actual haunted experience, and even to this day, and it's been, let's see, if I was 18, I'm 46 now, so it was a long time ago, and I really wish I could have gone back to that house in Madera. I forgot to mention that's where it was at. It was in Madera, and with just a voice recorder, maybe an EMF meter, but stuff had happened there. Now, I wasn't the only one that saw stuff, so something was there. Like I said, my mom had talked to the owner, or the previous owner. He actually lived across the street from us at that time, so he told her, yeah, my wife had died there. And, I'd seen something, my mom had seen something. I can't remember if my stepdad or sister saw something, but there was something there. And I just wish I could have investigated. And honestly, even part of me was tempted to just drive by the house, and if I saw something in the front yard, kind of introduce myself, but I never did that. So that was my first real ghost story. I find it funny that in the years since, I've investigated countless places, and I've had stuff happen to me. I've been touched. I was actually even groped once, which was kind of unnerving and funny at the same time. And I've heard whispers, I've heard laughter, I've seen shadow figures, but this was a full apparition, and I find it very interesting that, and it's actually kind of helped to form a theory of mine in a sense. When you're looking for something, it's not always going to happen. That's why a lot of times when people investigate, they may not get anything that night. They might get an EVP, or if they're lucky, maybe something weird on video, but that's it. I really think when we're not focused on what's going on, that's when whatever it is decides to make itself known. So, that's my story. Hope you liked. This next story is one I found on the Mutual UFO Network site for sightings in California. As I was looking over the sightings, I found a very interesting one that happened near Fresno in October of 2011. On the night of October 5th in Madera County, near the intersection of Highway 41 and Avenue 12, at around 10:30 p.m., a mother and her two teenage sons were driving north on the highway, heading home, when one of the two boys noticed something strange in the sky and pointed it out to both his mother and brother. Per the report, the boy estimated that there were around 10 of the objects in question and described them like fuzzy white orbs, and they appeared to be zooming in and out of the clouds above them. And at this point, the mother decided to stop at the intersection and make a right turn onto Avenue 12 towards the Madera ranches. Apparently, one of the boys was curious and was able to convince his mother to turn back around and see if they could get a better look at the object in the sky. As they headed back on the highway, they passed a barn on the eastern side and noticed a large triangle-shaped object in the field next to it. The object in question was described as a rather large triangle with its tip pointed up, and each vertex of the triangle had a white blinking light on it. That was the end of the report, and there's nothing more from the mother or her two sons about what they saw or how they felt or even what they thought it was. As for what I think it was, I don't know. The lights in the sky, I have a theory. Being the fact that it was cloudy, I've seen spotlights that hit the clouds in the sky and they zoom around like, they're UFOs. So that could be it. The soft white fuzzy light, that's to me a dead giveaway. And I would have discounted this, and even MUFON would have discounted this if it wasn't for the object that they saw on the ground itself. A large triangle-shaped object with white blinking lights on the points? I have no idea what that is, or what that was. This was 2011. Drones weren't really a thing then, at least not commercial drones. It could have been a military drone, but for just to land in a public field. And like I said, it's literally off the side of a major highway. There's traffic all the time. I'm surprised nobody else saw this thing. I wish I knew what it was, but like all these other stories that I've shared over the years, it's weird, and it's interesting, and it's a mystery. In the small California town of Armona, there was a legend of a 9-year-old girl that met a tragic end, and her restless ghost haunts the area to this very day. Sometime in the 19th century, the girl and a few of her friends were skinny dipping at a local watering hole outside of town. A group of boys suddenly showed up and threatened to come into the water after them. Most of the girls ran away into a nearby walnut orchard before the boys could get them. The one little girl in question was too scared to follow, and instead she dove underwater to try and trick the boys into thinking she too had followed the other girls. Unfortunately, the poor girl drowned. Legend says the restless spirit has roamed the area for years. The townsfolk named her the Walnut Girl because she was always seen in locations that contained walnuts, mostly orchards and packing plants. However, no male has ever seen the ghost, but stories say that girls around the same age as her are the ones that are most likely to see her. There is a first-hand account from a woman who saw the ghost of the girl in the old Armona Southern Pacific Depot. The depot itself was built in 1931 and was used for several decades before it was abandoned and today now stands derelict. According to the witness, strange events would happen there, such as odd lights at night, and a compass would spin around and not point towards north. The witness continues to state that when she was around 9 years old, she snuck out late one night and went to the depot to explore it. She was shining her flashlight around when the light suddenly fell on a girl similar in age to her, but who was completely nude and had an old-fashioned hairstyle. Startled, she dropped the flashlight, and when she picked it up, the girl was gone. She later told her mother about the encounter, and her mother had said she had seen the same little girl in an orchard years ago when she was a child, and others had seen the same ghost, always nude and usually near a large concentration of walnuts. The mother then added that the ghost of the little girl had a vendetta against any boy because of what happened to her when she died, and it said that over the years, several young boys in the neighborhood suffered ill fortune because of her. So that is the story as I know it. And I've thought about it over the years and wondered if there's any truth to the story or if it is just complete legend. It's really hard to say. It could be a cautionary tale, similar to La Llorona, warning children not to go near water. Think about it. You're a little kid, little girl especially, don't go skinny dipping because little boys are going to chase you. And then what happens? You drown and you die. Your parents don't want you to do that, so they make up a story. That's how these things get started. There could be truth to it. People have said they've seen her. I mean, there was this witness account that literally said she had seen the ghost of the little girl, just as she'd been described. No clothes, old-fashioned hairstyle. If it's true or not, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to share the story. Do you have a story to share? We'd love to hear from you. Call the Weird Fresno hotline at 559-481-1057 or email me at weirdfresno@gmail.com and share your eerie encounter. Your story could be featured on an upcoming episode, allowing you to connect with a community of fellow truth seekers and enthusiasts of the unexplained. There are stories of a strange creature prowling the foothills of Fresno County, of a weird animal with long gray mangy hair and the face of an ape or baboon, and has both human-like hands and feet. It always appears to be sick, coughing and foaming at the mouth. Legend calls it the devil ape or the devil fang, but lately it has gone by the name of the Watts Valley wolf ape, as it has been seen near the Watts Valley Cemetery in the last few years. There are several old stories of the creature, that it has always been here and that the natives knew about it. Another story says that the legendary photographer Ansel Adams was in Yosemite one day when a pack of the creatures came upon him. He was able to hide in his tent and they eventually left him alone. An even more peculiar story is that of a wolf ape entering a single-room schoolhouse one day and terrorizing both the students and teacher. The children piled up their desks together and climbed up to safety in the rafters, while the teacher was able to lock himself into a closet. The wolf ape then tore through the children's desks to get at their lunches. Finally, after getting its fill, it left. Yet another odd story describes a preacher who shot a wolf ape back in the 1950s, claiming to be a pet of Satan. He hung it up on the church walls, and the story claims that the animal to be at least 10 feet long. Apparently, the preacher got into a bit of trouble as the wolf ape continued to hang on the church for several weeks, and understandably, the place began to smell really, really foul. So the preacher decided to sell it to a traveling circus freak show, and with the money he made off of it, he then moved up to San Francisco, with the idea of starting his own church up there. That didn't happen, though, as he was soon murdered after, and his body was so badly mutilated that it took several months to identify the body. Whispers of a curse from the wolf ape was the cause of the preacher's death. The way I had originally heard about this story is that it was told on the now defunct 103.7 KRZR. The morning show DJs, they were talking about it. Somebody had sent in the story. Apparently there was two witnesses, a man and his uncle, and the two were hunting for garnets near the Watts Valley Cemetery, which is in eastern Fresno County. The two were searching for the gems when they heard a rustling coming from some bushes nearby. And then all of a sudden, a creature that they describe as being about 6 feet tall, long gray mangy hair like a dog, but it had the face of a baboon, but the eyes were different. The eyes were flat on its face like a human's were. The creature then just opened its mouth really wide, but all that could come out of it was this moan. And as the jaw and the mouth got wider and wider, it just made this strange gurgling sound and then started to cough. Needless to say, the men were absolutely terrified and soon took off running, with the creature quickly following after them. One of the men threw his lunch at the thing, hoping to distract it, but it ignored and kept on running after them. The creature continued to stalk them over the hills, and the two men would jump fence after fence, taking shortcuts through pastures, hoping to escape the thing, to no avail. Even the cows were terrified at the sight of it and would quickly flee the opposite direction. Finally, the two men found themselves in the Watts Valley Cemetery and hid behind some tombstones, hoping to lose the beast. Unfortunately, it soon caught their scent and started to come towards them, when, in a moment of sheer genius if you asked me, the uncle threw some cinnamon-flavored gum he had at the beast, hoping the strong scent would distract it. It seemed to work, and the beast was momentarily occupied. Soon after that, a caretaker for the small cemetery arrived and offered the two men a ride back to their car several miles away. All three of the men watched the strange creature for a few more minutes in the safety of the caretaker's truck before it finally wandered away and left them in peace. So that's pretty much all I have for the Watts Valley Wolf Ape. Whether the story is true or not, I don't know. I do question the local legends that I mentioned at the start of the story. When I was told them, they were told to me either anonymously or somebody had heard it from somebody else, or they were already on the internet when I was searching for it. And this was, like I said, 15 years ago? I don't really remember. Things have changed then, and so if these are true or not, I don't know. As for the story that happened at the Watts Valley Cemetery, it's definitely interesting. What that was, I don't know. Maybe it was a mangy wolf or a rabid wolf. It sounds like some sort of rabid animal. But the location of where this is at isn't too high in the mountains. I'm not sure if wolves come down that low. And they're not that big. And the face is definitely descriptive. I mean, it had a primate's face and with human-looking eyes. You know, some people say, well, oh, it was a failed experiment, from where nobody says, just it was a failed experiment, which is BS if you asked me. I don't know what this thing was. This is one of the very first things I wrote about on Weird Fresno back in 2008, 2009, and I don't know what it is. I just know that there's a story out there, and there's the legend of the Watts Valley Wolf Ape, and it continues to this day. I have one more story to share, dear listeners, and it's another personal account of mine. Growing up in Madera, I had heard about this abandoned cemetery that was haunted. And the legend went that sometime in the 1980s, a bunch of Satanists had burned the church down and then did their quote-unquote dark rituals in the cemetery. There was a basement also, and that it had been filled in, supposedly with the remnants of the church. I don't know if that's true or not. So me and my friend Tom were like, you know what, let's go out and check it. We were 16, 17. He and I had been into the paranormal stuff for years. Ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, you name it. I was always into that from a young age. And we had a story to finally kind of explore. We weren't investigating yet; that wasn't for another couple of years. But still, we were doing the whole legend tripping, where the idea is you hear of this story, haunted place, whatever. You go out there, you want to experience it, and trust me, we experienced it as a Mark did too. So we thought, you know what? It's out of the country. This place was farmland. It was surrounded by vineyards and almond orchards. I knew the area because my dad's ranch was maybe 6 or 7 miles further south of it, and it's country. It's not rural. It's country. It's all farmland. And so I was like, you know what? We should probably get some protection. And I remember getting a baseball bat, which is smart. Baseball bat's not a bad idea to have when you're on the country at some abandoned cemetery. You don't know who's there. But that wouldn't cut it for me. I remember making a couple of wooden stakes. Apparently I was watching Buffy at the time and was influenced by that. And I think we had some holy water. I remember Tom having a sword. I don't know where he got the sword from. And it wasn't like a katana blade. I think it was like a military sword or something. I don't know. Like, we were 16, 17. This was a very long time ago. Very, very long time ago, unfortunately. But we had our protection. Oh, he also had brought some salt. The idea was, in case, there was anything there, we could basically pour a line of salt in a circle around us to protect us from any evil. Very standard fare. So one weekend night, we load up, him and I, we have our quote-unquote weapons, and we're driving out there. And like I said, this place is in the middle of nowhere. It's vineyards, orchards, like I said. We get there and just kind of like describe the location. So the cemetery itself, there was a site where the church foundation, the remains of the foundation was at. There's actually some steps, and they led to kind of a platform, and then maybe 100 feet away or so was like the backing of the church. And you can kind of tell that, obviously, since it's raised, there must have been a basement there. And so that kind of confirmed what we were told. And then to the east of that was a fenced-off area that was a cemetery. And it was, like I said, just middle of nowhere. There were some trees around it, but there was almond orchards on two sides of it, a vineyard on the other side of it, and then it was right against the street. And so, we're slowly kind of pulling up. We're checking it out, making sure there's no other cars there, because we're also told that this was a very popular spot for parties. Sadly, we were never invited to, but whatever. Anyways, we finally pull up next to the fence, and as we stop, I notice that there's this red glowing light coming from the cemetery, and I'm like, whoa, there's some candles burning. Somebody was just here. Were they doing like a ceremony or something? The idea at the time, still, Satanists were doing their rituals there. We thought somebody had done some quote-unquote dark ritual because we were 17 at the time and didn't know any better. And so luckily Tom had the car still running. He decided to put in reverse real quick and back out. Well, I noticed that the glow disappeared. I'm like, okay, that's really weird. I'm even more spooked now. I'm like, maybe it's not a candle, maybe it's some ghost light. Once again, teenager, don't know any better. He stops again, and I notice the glow comes back. I'm like, what is that? And then it occurred. I was like, hey, put your car in park. He did. Took his foot off the brake. The glow was dark. The red glow was his brake lights reflecting off the back of a polished tombstone. Like I said, we were already psyched up for stuff, and just so we wander around, and I noticed a lot. It wasn't as old as I thought it was. Mostly it was like 1950s, 60s, 70s, but there was still some more. I guess at the time more present day graves. This was 1990. Mid 90s, so I want to say before 95, so maybe like 94, 93. There was some stuff from like the early 90s, so it wasn't it wasn't abandoned per se, but it was just definitely not in use, because there was tumbleweeds everywhere, there was gopher holes everywhere, and what I thought was really weird is some of the graves themselves had a slight hump to them, almost like they couldn't dig deep enough, and they just placed the coffin not wherever, but they placed the coffin however deep they can dig it, but then I don't know, it was really weird. I never could figure out why that was the way it was. So we wandered around for a bit, spooking ourselves. I remember walking by this tree, and apparently it had a large nest of bats in it because they all flew out at once and swarmed me, and it scared the hell out of me. I remember just swinging my bat around trying to protect myself. I didn't a bat. I don't know. There's some joke there. I didn't hit one, luckily, because I would have felt really bad afterwards. I was just spooked at the time. But we had psyched ourselves up, and we were like, okay, cool. This place is cool. We're definitely gonna come back. Let me fast forward. I'm gonna say a year and a half. We were out of high school at that point, and living in Madera, there wasn't much going on. We would go to Fresno sometimes, but Tom and I, we always loved the spooky stuff. I don't know if I got it from him, but I think we encouraged each other love of it, because I know he's into it as much as I am. And so we went out there one night, and we're kind of walking around, and just taking pictures at this time, and the typical dust orbs, thinking that we have orbs, but hey, didn't know at the time, when this other car pulls up. And I'm like, should we leave? He's like, no, let's just see what happens. I'm like, okay. So these two guys and two girls get out. I'm like, oh, someone's putting a date here. Okay. And we have our flashlights going, and we kind of like point them in the direction, like, hey guys, how's it going? Like, oh, hey, you guys see any ghosts? Nah, not yet. Okay, so yeah, we brought our girls here. I was like, oh yeah, we've been here before, and we're kind of telling them the quote-unquote history of the place, the legends and whatnot, and the girls are getting scared. And I remember about that time, I started to hear what only I could describe as tribal drums, just this boom, boom, boom. And like I said, I know the area. My dad's place was nearby, well, 6-7 miles, like I said. That's nearby in farm, directions or whatever. There's nothing that could count for that. I'm like, do you guys hear that? I'm like, yeah, we hear that too. That's really weird. And then finally it stopped. Okay, I'm like a little spooked. And then maybe 5 minutes later, I don't know how long it was, but I will never forget this sound as long as I live. All of a sudden I hear this tee-hee-hee, tee-hee-hee, like two or three little girls laughing. And the only way I could describe it is they were laughing at something they knew that we did not know. I looked at Tom. He had the look on his face of like, yeah, I heard it. I looked at the other group, and they were spooked. Like, let's get the hell out of here, man. And they booked it. Like, they didn't run, but they power walked at least out the gate into their car and left. They were spooked. We maybe a couple minutes more. We're like, you know what? Let's get out of here. I was getting kind of spooked at that point. Like, just these two guys, they're big guys, and if they're spooked, I'm like, yeah, let's just go. I have a ton of stories from this place. Like I said, it's in Madera. It's called the New Hope Cemetery. I would not recommend going at night, only because now there is a caretaker there. He lives in a camper trailer on site. Go talk to this guy, though. He probably has stories. From what I've been told, he's really cool, but just don't go there at night. He's gonna get you. But other weird stuff happened. I remember just one night I was bored and I was driving home, and I didn't feel like going home yet, so I took a detour, and I was like, I'm gonna drive by it. Not sure if I was gonna stop or not. I didn't like going by myself. I don't like investigating places by myself in case something happens. Either I witness something, I don't have somebody to back me up, or two, something happens to me where I get hurt, nobody's there to call for help. So as I was driving, I turned from the road going east to head south, and I see these headlights in the orchard. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And as I'm driving towards them, they're like, I'm on the road, and they're to my right, and I can see them, like, and they're headed towards my direction, and they go from low beam to high beam, back to low beam to off, and then repeated over and over again. And it was really spooky. Now, it could have been something mundane, but all the stories over the years, all the weird stuff that's happened, like, I've heard weird noises also from there besides the little girls laughing and the travel drums. I'm pretty sure there's something there. Just over the years, it's been built up and built up. Now, how much of the story is true there, I don't know. But it's definitely an interesting story. Definitely a local legend. That's going to do it for now, I think. This podcast was written and produced by Michael Banty and is a Weird Fresno production. Any media used in this podcast is done so under the protection of fair use. Make sure to check out all my social medias on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thank you once again for listening, everybody. Remember, stay weird out there.